Yeah, shalom. My name's David Silver, and I live on top of Mount Carmel in northern Israel. And what I do is I travel all over the world, speaking primarily to Christian groups and holding seminars and conferences, trying to educate people on the truth about God's plans and purposes for Israel. Because sadly, over the last 1900 years, many people in the church have been deceived by a theology that we call replacement theology, that teaches that God has finished with Israel, but that's far from the truth, because even in the New Testament, Paul asks the question in Romans 11. He says, "I say then, has God finished with Israel?" And the immediate answer is, certainly not. So we can see very clearly that God hasn't finished with Israel. In fact, God can't finish with Israel because A, He is the God of Israel, and B, He made a promise to Abraham. He said that the sun will cease from giving its light, or the moon will also cease from giving its light before Israel ever ceases from being a nation before Him. So I see very clearly right throughout the Bible, if you really understand the nature and character of God, He doesn't break His promises. And if He made a promise to Abraham, He'll keep it. And really, we have the luxury of living in this age, because we can actually see the facts on the ground that Israel has come back after almost 1900 years of not being a nation. Israel is a nation once again. The Jewish people, 6 million Jewish people, have come home to Israel from all over the world in just in the 100 years. He's opening their eyes to see Jesus or Yeshua as the Messiah. There are now 200 congregations in Israel of Jews who believe that Jesus is the Messiah. There's maybe 400 or 500 around the world. Between 500,000 to 1 million Messianic Jews like myself who believe in the Old Testament and the New Testament. We're still Jews, we still keep the Sabbath, we keep the festivals, but we believe that Yeshua or Jesus is the Messiah. And my message really to the church is that if you're truly a Christian, God is calling you to stand with Israel. God is calling you to pray for Israel. God is calling you to work with Him. He says, "I want you to work with me." And what God is doing right now is God is bringing the Jewish people home. He's expanding the nation of Israel. While the world is trying to make it smaller, God is trying to make it bigger. So as the people of God, I believe that it's compulsory, really, for the church to be in agreement with Israel's right to live in the land. I mean, in Deuteronomy, or is it Jeremiah 30, verse 3, God says that He will bring the Jewish people back to the land of their forefathers, and they shall go in and they shall possess it. Not the people who live in Gaza right now, or the people who live in the West Bank. The Jewish people aren't the illegal occupiers. It's the others who are the illegal occupiers, because God has given all of the land. Actually, if you look in the Bible, all of the land from the Nile River to the river Euphrates, including Lebanon, God promised it to Israel. 2 of the tribes actually lived across the other side of the Jordan. So while God is trying to expand Israel, of course the world, who's under the influence of Satan, is trying to make Israel smaller. And the bottom line of my message is that Jesus, or Yeshua, will not return. According to Acts chapter 3:21, it says that He must remain in heaven until the time of the restoration of all of the things the prophets spoke about. The prophets spoke about the restoration of Israel. So if you're a Christian and you're watching this video and you want to see the Lord come back, then please check out what I've just said. Read your Bibles, but it says very clearly that Jesus must remain in heaven. He's not coming until God has finished with Israel. So we need to stand with Israel. We need to pray for Israel. We need to defend Israel's right to live in the land that God promised Abraham. Shalom.